20 years ago when eyelash extensions first came out, I had tried it. I reacted to the glue and I was stuck with it over the weekend. It wasn't until Monday when I could get back in and they took eyelashes, the glue and everything off. So I was already scared of that. But at the same time, I knew that I couldn't wear false lashes. I've had tried it before and awful time with it. And so I was just like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. Somebody recommended, they're like, maybe you should do eyelash extensions and maybe you should try it again because all the glues are different. Techniques are really different. You should really consider it. So I was like, okay. And this is 2 weeks before my wedding. I got on the hunt and I started to look at an area of a beauty need, aesthetic need, but really not very different from people having medical needs. There's a medical need. It's relatively urgent. It's 2 weeks away. And so what I did was I started to say what we all most of the time do is we have a new need. I'm going to ask the people around me locally, who's going to be the best expert to this? Who can do eyelash extensions? I asked people and I got a couple names and I got somebody who said, there's somebody really good. But I saw that the booking link was literally 2 days before the wedding. So I was like, I got to get somebody sooner to try this out first. And Anne, you were the one who was like, you better try this out early, girl.
Right. Because I have seen other girlfriends have bad experiences. They've had good experiences and they've had bad experiences. And the last thing I wanted for you just before your wedding is to have an allergic reaction or puffy eyelids and be like, oh my gosh, how do we fix this now?
Yeah. So, rather than going with somebody who's like, oh, this is the expert, because that was her appointment was like 2 days before the wedding. I was like, I better call around more. So I reached out. Remember, we think we know who our local experts are. Jane did my brows are not very thick. So years ago, she did microblading on my brows to help me have the brows, and the brows look good. She did
She did a fabulous job on your brows. We love the brows. So you're thinking, hey, she knows brows. Maybe she.
Well, don't you guys think that? I mean, like, oh, she knows brows. She must know eyelash extensions. Just kind of like wrong. Kind of like, don't you guys think like I have diarrhea and IBS? The GI doctor must know something about food. Mm-hmm. Wrong. Right. And so I reached out to Jane, who did my eyebrows years ago. And I said, hey, I would love to get a recommendation from somebody, because she works and she owns a salon in the area where she rents out space to other people. And I said, there must be someone there that's really good for extensions. And she said, well, as a matter of fact, I don't have anybody here that currently does it, but I used to do it for years. I just haven't done it in a while. I could do it for you, right?
So you were like, okay, I already know this person. I have positive experiences in another area aesthetically with this person. Let's give it a shot.
Well, it's about how do we find an expert and when is it trust that you should have in them and when is it blind trust? Right? We make certain assumptions. Number one is I made a certain assumption. Number one, that I needed to have eyelash extensions. Right. And sometimes we think we need a certain medical thing that we really don't. When we don't think about the problem in a bigger way. So number one, I was already honed in, laser focused on something that might not even have been the right thing. First of all, given my history.
And I think that's the point, is that you were laser focused, right? You were laser focused on this one thing that you thought would be the solution to this problem that you had. And you didn't really consider any other options or the fact that it may not even be a problem. When you're laser focused on something like that and there's urgency, then that's when you start to maybe make decisions that aren't the best for you. And we see this all the time in the medical world, right?
And I call it also a false sense of urgency. Like if we're forced to make a decision on a more urgent basis rather than taking our time, sometimes there are real deadlines for something. But I had a false sense of urgency, meaning like, oh my gosh, instead of waiting for that expert, why don't I get it in this week, 2 weeks before the wedding? Because I got to do that to try it out and make sure. Like I was introducing a lot of false urgency into my decision making, which is a recipe for disaster.
You think you need help with something so badly, and you think you know what you need help with. You think you know the help. Like, I'm just curious. You said you see it all the time in the medical world. Is it things like, I'm in so much pain right now. If only I could get a certain medication that would give me pain relief, and that's going to be the answer. Whereas really, maybe you need to think about a different avenue of, why am I in pain to begin with? And maybe I should be finding somebody who can help me address that.
Well, sometimes, for example, let's say someone comes to see us for an autoimmune disease and they just got told by the doctor that their recommendations, they have to get on Humira. and their visit is coming up next week. I'm on the phone. I'm trying to get help for my autoimmune disease because I have to make a decision about whether I'm going to take Humira not next Monday. To me, that is a false sense of urgency. And I always tell people that, which is like, do you actually urgently, truly, is it a medical urgency that you need to take Humira starting Monday? Because if it's not, then that's a false sense of urgency. You've got some time to do some research, to learn, to educate yourself, to think about other options, right? So
Yeah.
false sense of urgency pushes people to make bad decisions.
One example that we see a lot is people are told, "Oh my God, you need to get your gallbladder out like tomorrow."
Oh,
Right? Like that's a
Mhm.
big one that we see all the time. That it's like,
Mhm.
and maybe you do, we're not there. But the reality is, most of the time, it's not an urgent emergency that you have to get your gallbladder removed tomorrow. There are things that we can do to help support the healing of the gallbladder and the healing of the digestive tract.
I can go on record saying I've saved at least 100 women from getting hysterectomies.
And that's not a minor decision. That's not eyelashes. Like this, these are major decisions. Yeah.
Right. And so that's the problem is people are presented with these things, medical procedures, interventions, all sorts of major things. And they think that there's a false sense of urgency and they end up making these big invasive decisions wrong. So one of the most important lessons from that one was pull the urgency out of it. So based on that information, she was great with brows. That's the other assumption. She's great with brows. Of course, I can trust that she really has done eyelash extensions and great. I'm just going to go into her place and get it done tomorrow, which is what I did. These are the assumptions. And I didn't look for proof. I didn't look for evidence. I didn't look for testimonials. I didn't look for anything because of course she's not going to have on her website a ton of eyelashes extensions because she hasn't done them in a couple of years, right? Therefore, I bypassed a lot of my objectivity, discernment, because of blind trust based on assumptions of expertise of this person in another area on a new area. Okay. And that's a problem, right? How many people think going to the allergist is the be all end all and the best solution for dealing with food reactions?
So many people think that because they have no concept that there is even anybody else out there that can address this.
Well, an allergist is really good. This allergist is 5 stars on Yelp, right? Let's say, right? So, must be really good at food sensitivities or food reactions. Wrong. Right. To figure out the root cause that's underlying your chronic disease or symptom, click the link above or below this video and register for the training. We'll see you there.